So the week before last, you did some reading from the scholar Andrea Lunsford, and I wanted to talk a little bit about her and what her work has meant for the field of writing center studies and rhetoric and composition more broadly. Um, Andrea Lunsford is kind of a hero of a lot of people who study what I study. I think she's in her 80s now, but she's still very active in the field. This is her. She is fabulous. She always has her hair up in these twin buns in the back, and she's always wearing pearls, and she's usually wearing black. She was at the big conference that we all go to this year, the Conference on College Composition and Communication. And she was just like walking around spry, and everyone was like, there's Andrea Lunsford. So like, she's famous. She's famous in our field. She used to teach at Stanford University. I believe she's an emerita professor now, but she established the writing center that they have there. She started it, and it's a really big deal. It's actually, I've been there because I had a job visit there once, and it's basically its own building. Like the writing center is its own building. It's huge. It has 2 floors. It's gorgeous. So anyway, she pioneered that. She's published a lot of work, as you can see, on collaborative writing. She believes a lot in the power of us creating knowledge together instead of just individually. Back in the 90s, she had to kind of, what would you say, argue for that fact, as you probably noticed, because a lot of people seemed to hold individual knowledge as paramount compared to collaborative learning and collaborative knowledge. And so she was kind of speaking for collaborative writing as a thing, and how important it is and how much we can get from it, specifically in writing center contexts. That's not necessarily the case anymore. I think we've really embraced scholars doing work together collaboratively, and you know, the kinds of work that tutors do collaboratively with clients and writing centers. But back then, she felt like she had to kind of, I guess, justify the importance of collaborative learning. So she's taught a lot about that. She's also published a lot of work on the importance of audience in rhetoric and how important it is to teach students who they are writing to, what their task is being created for, and how to tailor any kind of writing into an argument that can meet the needs of a specific audience. So she's published a lot of textbooks that you can use in first-year writing. I believe one of them is called Everything's an Argument, and Everyone's an Author. I have that one in my bookcase. So she does a lot of work in rhetoric and composition, and she's a huge deal. So if you want to explore more of the work that she's done, if you're interested in learning more about collaborative learning, or if you're teaching in the future and want to use some of her textbooks, I have the bio on Stanford for her here. It's english.stanford.edu/people/Andrea Lunsford. So in case you're interested, you can read up more of the things that she's done in the past. She also talks about the Burkean Parlor in her article that we read, and I wanted to talk a little bit more about what that is and where that comes from. The Burkean Parlor originally came from Kenneth Burke. He was a rhetorician back in the 40s, and he published this book called Philosophy of Literary Form. And in that book, he talked about a metaphor for the conversation, or the academic conversation. I believe he called it the unending conversation because it keeps going. And this is a quote from his book that explains what that is. Imagine that you enter a parlor, you come late. When you arrive, others have long preceded you, and they are engaged in a heated discussion, a discussion too heated for them to pause and tell you exactly what it is about. In fact, the discussion had already begun long before any of them got there, so that no one present is qualified to retrace for you all the steps that had gone before. You listen for a while until you decide that you've caught the tenor of the argument, then you put in your oar. Someone answers, you answer him, another comes to your defense, another aligns himself against you, to either the embarrassment or gratification of your opponent, depending on the quality of your ally's assistance. However, the discussion isn't terminable, the hour grows late, you must depart, and you do depart with the discussion still vigorously in progress. So his metaphor was based on the idea that writing is kind of like being in a room with all kinds of people at like a party or something, right? They're already talking about something, then you come in and add something in, somebody responds to you, and then you go and do something else. But the conversation still goes on, right? So this is a metaphor that I use a lot in my teaching to explain to students what the academic conversation is, what intertextuality is. And I think it's also an apt metaphor for some of the work that happens in writing centers too. So in case that's helpful to you, knowing that background, that's where that comes from. And that's part of the reason why I think Lunsford used it to describe collaborative learning, is because we're all in a conversation together and we can kind of learn from each other and generate knowledge by responding back and forth. So that's what that is. Yeah, so that's Andrea Lunsford. She's amazing. If you're interested in her work, please look up more stuff from her because she's the best.